Okay, so why don't I start by asking the panelists to introduce themselves, and maybe we could start at the far end and work our way back towards me.
My name is Fidel Ndahayo from Rwanda. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the Rwanda Atomic Energy Board. This is an implementing organization separate from the Nuclear Regulation Authority, and our mandate actually is to make the nuclear power plant happen in Rwanda in the foreseeable future. So my background actually is I'm a nuclear physicist. Before I have been working in academia. Then I shifted to the Ministry of Infrastructure. That is the ministry responsible in charge of energy in Rwanda. And I was an expert in nuclear energy in that ministry until I became the CEO of the Rwanda Atomic Energy Board.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants. Irene Vatebe, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development of Uganda. And the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development of Uganda, as the host, is also leading the national program for nuclear power development. In terms of background, I'm a chemical engineer, and having started my career in nuclear, but then left for petroleum, and then I'm now back to spearhead the nuclear development program, leading an eminent team of nuclear engineers and scientists. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robert Subaji from Ghana with the Ministry of Energy. I used to be with the Ghana Atomic Energy Commission. In addition to coordinating the Ghana Nuclear Power Program, also the acting coordinator for our energy transition, which envisage our energy mix to be gas to power, renewable, and nuclear, which will be about almost 60% of the generation mix. So you see, discussing nuclear business and is very key to our energy mix now and in the near future. Our energy transition is looking at $562 billion over the period of almost 50 years, that is up to 2070. And when you look at the Ghana's energy mix, we have no option than to go nuclear because we've exhausted all our large hydros and our gas resources are also limited. So I'm very excited that we look at the easy ways to be able to finance our nuclear energy to take out the energy poverty from Africa. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Siddiq Talha from Sudan. So I'm a member of the Sudan Nuclear Power Program. I joined the program shortly after it started in 2009. And I've been involved in all its progress since that time in the nuclear infrastructure development. I was part of the team that drafted the nuclear law as well. And at the beginning, we managed to go fast with our ambitious program. But unfortunately, then the program slowed down. And initially, I was a researcher at Sudan Atomic Energy Commission. Then I moved to the nuclear power program, which is now under the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. I was a counterpart for a couple of technical cooperation projects with the IEA, and I participated in different conferences. I'm also lecturing at some universities. So, but in the last couple of years, I was just focusing on the nuclear power program, and we are still pursuing that, and hopefully we can get to some points with this program, while the main issues that actually now this project management and finance is one of the real tricky issues that need to be handled. So hopefully we'll learn from this conference so many things. Thank you.
Permanent Secretary Batebe, as our host this week, you get to be the first. So to follow on with this procurement and financing conversation, as Uganda has just made a commitment to proceed with nuclear power, is there a procurement path that Uganda has chosen, and what are some of the things that Uganda is considering or has considered?
Okay, as a background, yes, Uganda is looking to diversify its energy mix by including nuclear energy as one of the energy sources. And in terms of our generation plan and forecast, we expect that nuclear power will play a significant role in meeting that energy mix. Today, we are largely powered by hydro, but due to hydrological challenges and, of course, the drive to decarbonize on the fossil fuel side, it's becoming evident that nuclear will play a critical role in our energy security ambition. So today, we already have undertaken some assessment in terms of feasibility study to determine at least the initial capacity that we need to deploy as a country. So we are seeking to develop a 2,000 megawatt project initially. It will be phased, starting with 1,000 megawatts and then ramp up with an additional 1,000 megawatts. We expect that, it sounds ambitious, but we expect that we should be able to achieve the first phase in the early 2030s to be able to catch up with our growing demand. So in terms of development, and we have assessed a number of aspects, including the financing for this project, and being, of course, a developing country that has competing priorities, and today we are also faced with a limited fiscal space. We seek to develop this project through a sovereign-based model, where we partner with many other countries, and we've already entered some of these partnerships. You witnessed one yesterday with the Republic of South Korea. But we also have active partnerships with the Republic of Russia, but also China, and also the United States of America. And we are working on narrowing down on our final partnership for this development. So we seek to do this through a sovereign-based model, where together with that partner, we are able to attract financing. It could be an export credit agency from one of these countries that we are partnering with. And then through that, we should be able to execute the project through a project model-based arrangement where we contract through an EPC and be able to execute the project. Today, as we speak, we've already identified the site for the project, and we are going through a process of acquiring the land for that project, about 29 square kilometers in the eastern part of Uganda. And we expect that within 3 years, we should have possession of that land. So we will now proceed to actively engage our partners so that we narrow down on this partnership and be able to attract the necessary financing. It could also be through project financing, depending on what we are able to attract through these partnerships. So we are looking at some level of debt to equity, and we'll see how we syndicate, especially on the debt side, to be able to raise the debt. In terms of capital investment, from our preliminary assessment, for the 2,000 megawatts, we are looking at about $9 billion US, but you're aware with inflation and the changing terrain financially, that could go up. So it is a significant amount for a country that has many other burdens, and will be looking to develop it through the sovereign-based model, majorly.
Very sensible approach from my perspective. Let me direct this next question to the other three members of our panel. All of you represent a different country, and all of your countries are at a slightly different stage along your commitment to nuclear power. Have there been any internal discussions yet as to how you might finance a nuclear power project? And of course, finance is just one aspect of a nuclear project, so maybe not. Maybe you have not yet reached that step. But this is a panel about economics and finance, so let me go ahead and ask that question.
When it comes to nuclear financing in Ghana, it has always been the discussion, the topic on the table since day one. But before I go on, I'll also encourage Uganda to also collaborate with Ghana so that they can also learn from our experience as we completed the phase 1 of our nuclear program in phase 2, so that maybe some of the experience we have chopped over the period, they also to smoothen the number of years in their phases. With Ghana nuclear financing, first we considered all options, but we narrowed down to a BOT, build, operate, and transfer, or EPC plus finance, and the financing, mostly we are looking at government to government. We are not looking at a bidding process. We are looking at an RFQ so that based on the technology, because we are not looking at only technology, but we are looking at a program. So the vendor who is going with Ghana is not only selling a technology to Ghana, but it's working with us in the program. So we look at the whole holistic picture together with the vendor. So we encourage the vendor to make the financing part of our program not too difficult, or I'll say shouldn't put too much weight on the financing, because you see the way Ghana is positioned in terms of the sub-region. Most of our neighboring countries and the countries in West Africa sees Ghana's nuclear program as a very progressive. And if you look at the phase 1 of our program, when we came out with our program comprehensive reports, it spells out step by step what we want to do and how we want to get there. And any vendor who penetrates Ghana will penetrate the sub-region, and the sub-region is interconnected. So we finance so wholly our phase 1 because we wanted to make sure that before we get a vendor and look at and complete on the finance, we are not, some countries will lend to a vendor from phase 1. So by the time you want to construct the proposals which come, you've already put your hand in there, and maybe it's so outrageous and it is not profit. I will not say it is not value for money. So that is why Ghana solely decided to finance the phase 1 and part of phase 2. But at this point in time, as we are in phase 2, we need vendor, and we also have a financing. So that is how we are looking at our financing plan. Unfortunately, the multilateral banks, like, let's say, I'll say the IMF, the World Bank, don't finance nuclear program. And yet we are supposed to achieve SDG 7 by 2030. I wonder how we are going to do that, because when you take Ghana typically, we've exhausted, all our large hydros, our gas resources are limited, and nuclear is not an option, but it is a must. And we need funding for it. So, these are the kind of financing we are looking for, either BOT or government-to-government financing. Thank you.
Let me first congratulate Uganda for this very strong start of commitment. and as well as Ghana. I think they also have good experience. In fact, we almost like Ghana, we started early ago and we already completed phase 1. And at that time, we are very, the EPC contract is very attractive for us and like other conventional projects. But at the time going on, and we start to understand that, no, actually, we have a team, financial team, that looked into the various financial models that which suits Sudan. But it turns out that actually EBC might not be the good thing, as many people now think, because as the years go, then you will discover some problems, that you face some problems. And as Ghana mentioned, that you start to finance the first phase of the projects, and then the government has some other commitments, and then you start to look and find some problem with finance, particularly for the phase 1 and the pre-project activities, and particularly siting, when it comes to siting. And sometimes African countries, we also have some political issues in between. So I think we need to be careful about studying these financial models. And we realize that maybe BOT also is a good one as well. It's not just government to government. Also, this geopolitics is changing. So 5 years ago, government to government was very attractive, but now I think things change. So I think all this is the problem with the nuclear projects. It's a long leading time. And in these times, many things change, nationally and internationally. And then we need to be careful about saying, no, we'll just stick to this model or that model. So in conclusion, in Sudan, we still trying to study various models and to see which one is going to suit Sudan. Although at the beginning, we start with the EBC model, but now I think things change. Okay.
Thank you.
We haven't yet started discussion about the financing models, because actually what we are doing pre-feasibility study for the nuclear power plant project. So, and from the beginning, given the constraint on our national grid, so we have decided we will go for the SMR technology. And as you know, with the SMR technology now, not all the data is available that can allow us to start a valid discussion about the finances, for just because most of the time the cost is not yet known. And when we use the available data for the large nuclear power plants, of course we can have an idea of the needed upfront capital for us to achieve this project, but yet this data that we are using most of the time, and this is the challenge in most of the African countries. So the data, the construction cost data on nuclear power plants that are available are just valid for either USA or Europe, and we have little or no data regarding the costs on the African continent. And this is a big challenge when you are trying to plan and even to make the financing models. So this is the situation. But nevertheless, we are still thinking of government-to-government agreement, but we are also will be open to BOT, especially because these SMRs are new, and we would be more than comfortable to partner with the developers than to make sure that that technology is made operational in Rwanda under their supervision and then be transferred to our own control later on.
I think that we are in the unenviable position of being the last panel before lunch. So unless any of you have a closing remark, perhaps, that you'd like to make to highlight some aspect of this that you feel like we haven't yet covered?
Risks and how governments can mitigate those to facilitate nuclear investment. On our side, we've paid attention to the electricity markets and how we've structured them in terms of regulation to be able to provide certainty to investors that want to invest in the electricity market. And for nuclear, the state of our electricity markets as countries that vie or are looking to integrate nuclear into our energy mix, it's important that we work to make them attractive. So we do have a regulator, our Atomic Energy Council, and I'm glad the CEO is following this discussion. And we are working to ensure we even amend our Atomic Energy Act to be able to strengthen our commitment to support nuclear power development. So as we look for the financing, it's important that on the regulation side, we are also creating a conducive investment climate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'd like to, the first point, I think whatever financing model that is selected, I think the most important that always sovereign assurance is always important, whatever model that is selected for these projects. Second point, I think, I don't know, but from my experience, our experience there, I think we should give priority to fixed policies regarding tariff. And this will help us to be a little bit relaxed on selecting the proper financial model. If you have policies in place, even for the current situation that we have, for the current electricity sources that we have today, and we have a proper tariff policy, then I think we'll be a little bit relaxed in selecting the reasonable financial model that fit the nuclear project.
Okay. Ghana is looking at identifying vendor country by the end of the year, and I will encourage prospective vendors to sweeten the financing for Ghana, because we are not only giving you Ghana, we are giving you the whole sub-region. Thank you.
To one thing that has even pointed out during the two previous presentations, in the process of contracting, you have seen we need people, we need financial teams, we need technical teams. And in most of the case, in our developing countries, we don't have those teams with the necessary skills to conduct those negotiations. And the lack of those skills actually also have an impact on the negotiated price. And I just want to point out that the human resource development actually is the backbone for the success. When you have the right people with the right skills, you can negotiate a good contract. But if you don't have, thanks to excellent companies there, they are doing a good thing. But when you don't have the minimum required people to be able to navigate through this process, you are most likely doomed to fail.
Our panelists, thank you for sharing your insights. And I believe we have lunch now, and I believe that it's sponsored by Hunton Andrews Kurth. So enjoy. Thank you.